Nothing affects your business success more than its culture. But how do you cultivate the right one and then make sure that it scales along with your business? When founders don't clearly define their workplace culture, they may be prone to ending up with a culture that doesn't reflect their own values. And if they're not intentionally nurturing their culture as they grow, they could end up with a dysfunctional one. Why is culture so important to success? For one, employees who feel highly connected to their company's culture are 4 times more likely to be engaged, according to Gallup. They're 5 times more likely to say that their company is a great place to work. And they're 62% less likely to feel burned out. Culture also plays a major role in promoting retention. In fact, a poor company culture is the strongest predictor of an employee's turnover rate. No one wants to work in an environment that feels uncomfortable or prevents them from doing their best work. In this video, we'll look at what holds companies back from scaling a strong culture. Then we will examine strategies and success stories. So let's talk about challenges of scaling a strong culture to begin with. For a small startup, culture may feel effortless, but as you add people, challenges in maintaining your desired culture can emerge for reasons like greater separation between the leader and the employees. In a startup, the CEO works closely with a small team of people, but as you scale, that's no longer the case. It's just not possible. Sharing vision and values takes more effort. As you grow, it's natural for feelings of disconnection, especially for those that are remote workers or contract employees. Another is difference in culture, background, and mindset. As you work with a broader range of people, you'll encounter different expectations about how a team should function. Another common problem is uncertainty about what type of culture that would work best for your organization. Fortunately, you can overcome all these challenges with the right approach. Now let's dive in and see how do we do that. So let's talk first about strategies for scaling your culture. Scaling up culture starts with gaining clarity on what you stand for. As you add remote or in-house staff, use these strategies to help forge a thriving culture at every stage of growth. They shape strategy execution by guiding your choices as well as employees' behavior. Here's how to set up the right ones for you. Identify your core values as a company. You may also think of these as like character or personality. Stick to a handful of core values. For example, boldness, curiosity, and humility can all be core values. Try to stick with only 3 to 5 at the most. If you have more, no one's going to remember them. So keep the list small. It's also important to model your core values as a leader. Think of concrete examples of how you live these values out every day. Then share stories and anecdotes in team meetings. Look for new hires that reflect your values. When interviewing candidates, ask questions that help you to understand whether they live these values or not. Be sure to convey your vision to your team, connecting it to your values. Maybe consider sharing a monthly message from the CEO that speaks to your vision and your values, and then coach managers on how to share them with your team. Hold everyone to the same standards, no matter how talented they are. If they don't uphold your values, like integrity, don't give them a pass. If you do, your choice will underscore the vital importance of your values. Some companies have successfully designed a culture based on current employee values. Rather than imposing values and culture, they look at what's already working, distilling it down into values and practices for their team. With your own team, you can follow this approach by looking at what's working well and then identify any gaps that are there. Next, let's talk about adopting these right processes and practices. Through well-crafted processes, you can translate the core value elements of your culture into practice. Here's how do we do that. First, let's look at the qualities and practices of your most highly engaged team. For instance, what allows them to collaborate effectively across a geographic distance? What practices make their culture feel so inclusive? Adopt these practices across your organization. Build them into your culture. Engage in remote team building activities is another great way to build your culture, like virtual check-ins and team rituals. A short check-in can set the tone for the work week. emphasizing that you care about your people on a human level. For us at my company at IE Blueprint, this has translated to an over 90% employee retention rate in an industry where usually it is between 50 to 70%. Another idea is to build in small blocks of time for socializing so that people can just get to know each other. Another thing you can do is work with a remote staffing agency that helps you to hire people who fit your team and your culture well. IE Blueprint vets virtual assistants, weeding out anyone who doesn't fit into your culture and your needs. Another thing you need to do is make sure that you develop a clear onboarding process that emphasizes your values. Assigning a cultural mentor can also help the new assistants to acclimate to the organization. This helps make sure that they win and your team continues to win. Something that is often overlooked is also sharing appreciation and praise regularly. Hey, make it specific. Whenever you praise something specific that you want your team to keep doing, it will build excitement around those tasks. Implementing these practices will build a supportive, inclusive, and highly motivated culture that promotes continued growth. So let's talk about adapting to change. Look, no company's culture is going to stay the same forever, nor should it. Here's how to navigate those inevitable changes. First, celebrate your differences while also finding common ground. Don't look for people who think exactly like you do, but do look for those who share your common values. Make sure the values are the same, but you want people that think differently. You want different opinions. Be open to cultural shifts. New hires can influence culture in a positive direction, keeping it from stagnating. If you ever find yourself merging with another company or acquiring another company, engage in thoughtful discussion of how to integrate those two cultures. Building a strong culture will help people feel more comfortable taking risks, sharing innovative ideas, and then also contributing at a high level. Moreover, on strong teams, everyone will help each other grow. So let's look at a couple of examples of how businesses can strategically scale up their culture, either by maintaining a thriving culture or changing a less than ideal one. Let's first talk about a company that was rapidly scaling a healthy culture. So one small insurance agency planned to quickly hire several new staff members so they could scale up their operations. Knowing that they'd be rapidly doubling their size, leaders were worried about losing their company's strong culture. So they sat down together to determine what made it strong. They came up with a core set of defining values. Resourcefulness, problem-solving ability, and agility were the three things that they came up with. Thinking of themselves, they said, "We're small, but we're scrappy. We come up with out-of-the-box ways to solve customers' problems that our competitors haven't thought of." Here's what they did to make sure that these values remained a cornerstone of their culture. First, they integrated them into the job posting to target the right people for the job. Second, they crafted a few interview questions that would help reveal whether candidates were on the same page or not. Additionally, they designed a process that reflected these values, like regular brainstorming sessions on how to solve challenges more efficiently. They engaged people at every level to generate creative new ideas. In the onboarding process, they also shared a message from the founder that spoke to how these core values supported their vision. Then they paired these new staff members with mentors who could reinforce these values. Through their efforts, they kept their culture strong and continued solving customers' problems in highly effective ways. Here's another example of a company that knew that they had elements of their culture that needed to change as they grew. This insurance agency had been operating for about 5 years, and an unhealthy internal competition had taken root. So leaders sat down to identify what cultural values would help correct this problem. They also surveyed staff to see what their opinions were. Collaboration, learning together, and teamwork rose to the top of the list. So adopted weekly team building activities that would help start things off on the right foot. They also launched a system of peer networking that led to co-worker sharing of skills with one another. As a result, relationships grew stronger and people didn't see each other as competitors anymore, but as team members working together on a common goal. As they added new staff, they included them in this activity as well. After some time, one of the employees said, "I've never been a part of such a supportive culture before. It's such a positive environment." So as you build or enhance your own company's culture, keep reflecting on how you live your cultural values more fully. Like the two inspiring companies that we looked at, define your values in detail and hold ongoing dialogue about how they can guide your work. If you're aiming for major cultural shift, get everyone on board through talks or workshops on the attributes that you're looking to integrate. By taking these steps, you'll build a thriving culture that aligns seamlessly with your strategy and keeps morale high as you grow. As you continue to scale your business, finding the right virtual assistant will help keep your culture very strong. If I can help you in any way, feel free to schedule a call. This is Bo Pilgrim. Hope you have a great day.